Okay, starting with the blank paper, we're going to make sure that your name and period is on there. Please first and last name and the period that you're in the class. And you may want to label these first, or you may want to wait to label them until after you've shaded. Either way, you are going to do them in the order that they're listed down here. And if you are doing the hatching first, well, really, whichever one you're going to start with. If you're left-handed, it works really well, I think, to start with it as is. You may want to start, if you're left-handed, start up at the top box, not the top here, but the top row. But you can actually start with the darkest, so start with 10 and come down and fade down to number 1. If you're right-handed, I find it easier actually to flip your paper over, because I still think it's easiest to start with the darkest first. So if I'm going to do the darkest and I'm going to work up here, then I would actually start doing my scribbling first. If I wanted to start with my hatching, that's fine. I can start down here, do that, and you don't have to turn this around. I just think it's easier. But start down here at the darkest again. But if you do this row, make sure that it's completely dry before you move up above. That's why you may want to start here instead. But I just think it's easier to start darkest. So if I'm doing scribbling, I'm going to move it over so maybe you can see a little bit easier. The scribbling is just like what it sounds like. You are actually scribbling. But it's a controlled scribble. You're not like all over the page. And you do not need to shade and finish this square and then move on and finish this square and so on. You actually can bring some of that down. So do a little bit. Come back to the 10, fill in a little bit more, fill in a little bit more, a little bit more, going maybe into the next box, start back at the 10 again, and just keep layering that up, and each time start back at 10 and go a little bit further, and you'll start to build that up. So again, starting back here, so you can see that my 10, so maybe stay there just a little bit longer, and then go into the next box, the next. So you just kind of keep on going, and it's going to start building that gradient. So you're going to keep coming back. You may have to kind of change a little bit to make sure you're hitting those lighter areas so that you start building those darker. And you just keep on going down to the one's going to have very little, so the 1 may be done. So now I may need to just start back at the 10 again and then stop at the 2, so that the 2 gets a little bit darker, and then stop at the 3 and so on. So you just kind of keep building that up. So it's going to be a gradual transition. You don't have to complete a box and then complete a box, complete a box. Okay, so that's my scribbling. Now I'm not going to get as far on my stippling. The stippling does take the longest. The stippling is just making dots. You want to make sure that you're not squishing the tip of your paper, or I'm sorry, the tip of your paper, the tip of your pen, just very gently, dot, 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 dot. And it's going to take a little while. Got to be patient. This will take longer than all the other ones combined. But if you go really quick, you're going to get these weird little marks. You're going to get more like little dashes. So that's where you want to slow down. But if you're hearing dot, 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 you are probably pushing too hard and you're going to mash the tip of your pen. And again, this one does not work using the ballpoint pen, or at least it's more work than it really warrants. If you want to use ballpoint pen on any of these, I recommend having another piece of paper or several pieces of paper under, so that it makes your marks a little bit more satisfying. Anytime the surface is a little bit softer, I think it works a little bit better on the ballpoint. On the Sharpie, you don't need to worry about that, but on the ballpoint it does help. So pretend that I've completed all of that, and I still, you saw that I didn't complete my original one either, but your 10 should be at least this dark, and like my 9 still needs more work, but the 1, that's pretty close for a 1. And remember to kind of check your success. If you squint, you should see a gradual change in that value. The next row, I'm actually going to switch. I'm going to do the first one here. This is my hatching. Hatching is all one direction. but it does not need to go corner to corner and be a complete solid line all the way across there. It can be, if that makes you happy and that's the way it works for you. Okay. Again, you can go from one box into the next. You don't have to complete a box and then move on to the next box. But all of your marks are going to be pretty much parallel. Not maybe mathematically parallel, but basically parallel. So you're going to keep them pretty much going the same direction. And the same way as before, you're going to just keep building up more lines until you have very little white space in between. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving those. Some of my lines can be shorter. Some of them can be longer. That's okay either way. But you're building that up. And I just keep going back to 10 and adding a little bit more dark, a little more lines. Again, connecting those a little bit more. And each time I just go out a little bit further. And that's going to be my hatching. So it's going to look more like this. Again, this is my blue ballpoint pen. But you see lots of lines here and they just keep fading down as we go. So that's the hatching. Cross hatching, you go multiple directions, and it's not just perpendicular. You're going to have more directions than that. You may start out with that, but then you can also turn your paper if it's easier. But I usually go on darker areas at least 3, so I can bring some of those all the way down there. But I keep coming back and layering those in. Again, you just keep coming back to the 10. That's why I think it's easier. Again, right-handed, turn your paper over perhaps. Lefties, you guys are probably used to that. But this time you don't have to. Not that you ever have to, like the right-handers, you don't have to turn it over either. I just find it a lot easier. So again, keep coming back to that 10 and then just keep bringing all your lines further and further and building that up. So you end up getting, again, that transition from darkest to lightest. 0, the paper, so off where you labeled, that's going to be your 0. So 10 is the darkest, 1 is the lightest. All right, so I'm not going to get this all completed. It's going to take too long on the video, and then it won't upload, and then you guys won't want to watch it, and blah, 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 blah. But know that those are the things that need to happen. All right, once you've completed that, then you're going to move on to the sphere. And on the sphere, I'm going to actually make the last video separate for that.